This is for Peter Mellinger, the Regional Organizing Director of the Clinton campaign in Manchester, New Hampshire. Mr. Mellinger, we met after the New Hampshire Together event. Three of us were sitting in the auditorium discussing our continuing support for Bernie. You walked up and asked how you all could get our support. I was unable to stay and finish the conversation, but here's the answer I would have given you. First, we need to examine how the Democrats found themselves in this position. Many, many months ago, I'm sure the question of how to mobilize the voter base arose. Unfortunately, Hillary has neither the charisma nor the stage presence of her spouse, very little excitement, no motivating factors for the voters, and so on. I'm sure you all brainstormed ideas on how to get the Democrats to vote and how best to avoid defeat in November. Enter Bernie Sanders, a charismatic, honest, hardworking, trustworthy senator with stellar consistency on progressive issues. Excellent choice, as evidenced by the record number of both new voters registering and older voters engaging in politics for their first time. Bernie did exactly what you needed him to do: excite the voters and get them to the polls. Mr. Mellinger, in science, when you change a variable in an experiment, the outcome changes. Adding Bernie Sanders to the equation produced the desired results, right? Millions of additional voters were not only added to the rolls, they went to the polls and voted. Wow, a huge energized base giving the Democrats a big energy lift heading into an election year. Exactly what was hoped for, wasn't it? But it was not what the party actually got, because the hypothesis was faulty. The assumption was these new voters were Democrats, and this was largely ignored until Bernie's rallies became larger than life. The DNC had inadvertently become the foundation of a new progressive movement that was fully unintended. It has usurped the status quo, taken on a life of its own, threatening to derail the traditional model of politics as usual, and the DNC is now concerned on how best to handle the situation they themselves created. The original question has now returned: how best to avoid defeat in November? It's simple. You need Sanders supporters in order to win. You've known that all along. What you didn't count on was that Bernie supporters are not Democrats. It's not about the party. It never was. Your equation was off balance because you forgot to include this one little variable. We're progressives. Why not Hillary as the progressive candidate? Because she's not progressive. I've heard her say the $15 minimum wage was not reasonable. I've heard her say universal health care was not reachable. I've heard her say adding college to public education is not possible. We've all heard her say these things. We, the progressives, do not accept her as a fellow progressive because all she can say is no. At this point, she could greenlight every single item on the progressive agenda, and we would still not vote for her because she is not trustworthy. For this, there is no resolution. I've often said this election is the DNC's to win or lose. There is a very small chance Hillary can win. This chance gets smaller as time goes along. In May, MSNBC analyzed her campaign races in a piece entitled "The Poll That Might Scare Clinton's Supporters." She always begins with a large lead that decreases over time, never regaining her lost ground. If she's in a dead heat now with the GOP candidate, by November she will likely be losing in the polls. How badly does the DNC want to win? They have the answer to this question, but they refuse to budge and accept reality. Here's a quote from the June 1 Quinnipiac poll. Senator Bernie Sanders can take solace in the fact that he leads Donald Trump, but the cold, hard truth is that his own party favors Hillary Clinton by a whopping 13 points. His own party? But independents like me are the largest voting bloc, the ones who really decide the elections. Bernie can beat Trump easily. Why does the DNC persist in supporting the weaker candidate? Here's my take on this. I imagine the Democrats, who are already known for the first African American president, want to make another back-to-back history-making presidency by electing a woman president. Except that's not going to happen. She's the weaker candidate and has been all along, as I've said before. You know this. However, there is another first here. The DNC can tout the first modern progressive president, the one that starts us on the path to where we should be, according to Robert Reich. Mr. Mellinger, this is a pivotal election. The Democrats can win this easily. The voting public, regardless of party, is ready for change. We voters have two choices, not Democrat or Republican, but progressive or regressive, Sanders or Trump. Clinton represents the status quo and is not a viable option to Bernie supporters, most of which are independents. There is only one way to earn our support, and that is to embrace not only the progressive platform espoused by Sanders, but also to embrace Sanders as the nominee. In doing so, you virtually guarantee a win not only in 2016, but for years to come. Bernie Sanders is the only answer to your question. Come November, the Democrats can choose to become the progressive party this country needs, or not. The election is being served to the DNC on a silver platter. All you have to do is accept this one fact. You have massive amounts of support for a popular public servant, albeit not the one the DNC wants. So, are you willing to forego Clinton in order to win the election? Will you squander this incredible opportunity on a questionable candidate, or reach for the brass ring and prove you are still the party of the people? The choice of candidate is, of course, yours. Our votes, though, belong to us, not the party. We are not worried about a Trump presidency any more or less than we are about a Clinton administration. That tack will not work on us, not even with Pence as VP. Thank you again for your time, Mr. Mellinger. The answer here can be as complicated or as simple as the DNC wants it to be. We want Bernie. The DNC wants to win. It seems pretty simple to me.